Welcome to the Cross Points podcast. I am so honored and privileged today to be with Phil Kriling. Phil is a former pastor, and we're going to talk a little bit about his role. I shouldn't say former pastor. He's still pastoring, but he's got a ton of connections here in Kansas City, and I wanted to bring him on the podcast and share with us. So, Phil, welcome.
Thank you, Pastor David.
Yeah, for sure.
Good to be here.
So, Phil, just to kind of give everybody a little bit of just kind of a 411 on who you are, why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of your ministry experience? I know you were a pastor for 20-some years? How long?
I was there just short of 30, 29 and 6 months. So
29 and 6 months. Okay, so tell us, what was the church? And
Overland Park First Assembly of God.
Overland Park First Assembly, and where is that located?
That's on 75th Street between Metcalf and Antioch.
Yeah, okay, all right.
It's midway there on the north side of the road.
So 30 years. So you started back in the day.
Yeah, I came there out of college as a youth pastor and to work. They just built a gym, and so we were developing a basketball league as a kind of an outreach.
Interesting. So I'm sure you've had a ton of different experiences in that 29 and 3/4, period of time. And that's a long time to be at one church. Not very many pastors are there for that long.
I didn't think I would be there very long. I really thought I would teach and coach.
Really?
Matter of fact, I had the privilege of coaching out here at Maranatha Academy for a while.
What'd you coach?
Basketball.
Basketball, okay.
And so I was there as a youth pastor. Senior pastor started getting sick, so I was kind of filling in more preaching sometime. And he eventually had a stroke. And so I took care of the church along with another young man, Mike Clarenceall, who was out of our youth group. Yeah. And the two of us, we kind of took care of it for the next 3 or 4 years. Mike went on to pastor somewhere else. And senior pastor one day said, I need to speak to the people, and he hadn't spoke for 4 years. And at the end of the service, he came up and said, I've been Moses to this congregation. I've been here 41 years, but Joshua has come, and I'm to no longer be called the senior pastor of this church. And the board came to me and said, so are you going to take it, the pastor? And I said, I don't know that I'm called a pastor. I said,
really?
I really think I'm a basketball coach.
Okay.
Prayed about it. I said, I'll do 1 year.
Okay.
And that was in 1990, and I did 21 of those 1 year commitments before I resigned in 2010 to do what I'm doing now.
Wow, that's interesting. So the pastor hadn't spoken for 4 years.
Yeah,
and you had been kind of filling in for those 4 years. So in effect, you were really the pastor of the church for those 4 years.
Well, yeah, and we were going through a building program. Well, and Mike and I did it well together. We were great friends, as opposite as could be. But we were best of friends. And I preached Sunday morning, he preached Sunday night. Next week he'd do Sunday morning, I'd do Sunday night. We just went back and forth, and everybody said, this is an unbiblical situation. And I said, well, it may be untraditional, but why is it unbiblical?
Right.
We listen to each other, we submit to each other, and we say, hey, what's best for the church? And I said, it wasn't about either one of us. It was about the church. So
that's really good.
It really worked well.
Now, you were telling me a little bit about, and some of our listeners will know the connection here, but you had Clint Sprague and Greg Hall, who are some names that are familiar with some of our listeners. Yeah, so tell me a little bit about that.
Greg's mom was our women's ministries director.
Okay, so she directed the women's
and
ministry.
the first time I ever met Clint, Greg Little, they were in a home doing some things probably shouldn't do. Clint often shares his testimony.
Yes, exactly.
Here in Shawnee.
He was always a little rambunctious.
Barbara asked me if I would go by and talk with the boys. And so I did. I think it was like 85, 86. I don't remember. I got married at the end of 84. So sometime after that. Because I went in to talk to the boys and they're drugged out of their mind. I don't think they had a clue what's going on. But one of them kind of jumped up in my face. And I remember saying to him, I said, son, I need you to understand something. I said, I'm not as nice a guy as I ought to be as a pastor. And I said, you ever jump up in my face again? I said, I'll knock you down.
Did you just hear that?
Then I went home and I told my wife, I says, I don't know if I'm cut out for this pastoring because I'm not.
It was probably the thing they needed to hear. And I'm sure
you know
if they were here,
they later got saved.
Exactly.
I mean, it's phenomenal.
Hey, here's an interesting story. You probably don't know this, but my wife and I, back in the mid-'80s, we invited Clint to come to the youth ministry at Full Faith, which is now Cross Points.
Okay.
And it was kind of through that experience, and he had just gotten saved, trying to figure out what he was going to do, and then kind of started getting involved with Cross Points. So,
well, if Pastor Clint's listening, I would tell him what we've always said. He used to say to me, he said, Pastor Phil, when we were just a bunch of idiots wrestling around the gym floor, did you ever think we'd do something like this? One time when I was out visiting his church, and I said, Clint, I really didn't ever think you would stay saved. You were the one kid that
You were the one kid that I thought would not. Yeah.
But Clint is the power of what the Holy Spirit and a good wife can do in a life to make a
Absolutely.
And he's done a phenomenal
He's
job
done an
there. Excited what's going on
amazing
like
job.
that.
Yeah, Life Mission Church doing a great job. Really a
Yeah.
phenomenal ministry in the city.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Everything.
that's very cool. Okay, so tell me, as you were there for 29 some years at the church, I know one of the things that you did was kind of some church planting things, which is kind of the heartbeat of Cross Points as well. And I thought, man, what you've done is really pretty phenomenal. So why don't you tell us a little bit about some of those experiences and what churches you guys planted?
Well, I always had
Or how did you get there?
Heart to want to plant churches. I mean, as I became the senior pastor there in '90.
Yeah.
Before that, the church had also planted. There was a church out south that's in Faith Chapel.
Okay.
That church planted. Church now that Nexa Christian Center, now known as City Center.
Okay.
That was planted out of there, and I think 77, 78. I didn't get here till 81, so it was planted before.
But that was
in
planted
Lenexa.
out of that church.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Pastor Howard
Okay.
picked out 60 people, kind of live in that area,
Okay.
and said, you're going to go with them.
Wow.
You got to stay 1 year,
Right.
help them get going. After 1 year, you can make a decision if you want to come back or not.
Wow.
And some of those people came back, and a lot of them stayed and became a part of that church.
Now, let me tell you something. That's pretty cutting edge because not a lot of churches were doing that back in the day, in the late 70s, early 80s, or whatever. I mean, that's really amazing.
And then we started 90, as we were doing a building, we kind of built with a room in mind,
Okay.
the idea of being able to plant churches out of.
Okay.
And it ended up that a lot of the churches we planted ended up being international churches. I think we did a Messianic Jewish church, Korean,
A Korean church, okay.
Hispanic,
Yeah.
Ethiopian, Brazilian, Chinese, inner city church in
Hold it.
KCK.
All of those churches here in Kansas City, the Ethiopian, Chinese, and Hispanic. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, it seemed like God would bring just a few people into our church.
Okay.
We kind of helped one of them to identify as a pastor who always seemed like God was at work in.
Okay.
Then they just started attracting people. They'd meet in our church for a while. Then they would go out and start meeting in this room,
Wow.
and it would grow. And sometimes in the Hispanic church, it became so large that it had to take over the sanctuary in the afternoon. And the joke was we had 2 services on Sunday morning, and then after we were done Sunday school classrooms, the Chinese church would come in, and then then they would have service. The Hispanic church would come in after them and do Sunday school, and then they'd do it. And then we had the Brazilian. And we joked that we didn't need ushers; we needed traffic cops. I mean,
You're right.
And it wasn't like our hallways really weren't lined up well for it. But people loved just running into each other and seeing kind of that excitement of what was going on.
Talk about the diversity of the body of Christ. Like, I mean, that must have been a really sweet time, just to seeing all of these, again, a diverse group of people coming together.
Yeah, and as they were coming in, and I had no idea back then, Pastor David, but since in church, since the ministry I do now, that they say between 635 on the Kansas side,
Okay.
and 435 over by the stadiums on the Missouri side,
Right, okay.
above I-70,
Yep,
pretty well
okay.
above I-70.
Right.
They now say there's 211 different language groups in Kansas City in that area. This is the most diverse place in America. I mean, we don't need to go to the mission field anymore. That's how many language groups are here.
Okay,
to
hold
be
it.
starting church there.
You got to slow down just for a second because that's a ton to take in. You're saying there's 211.
The government says there's 211.
The government says
yeah,
there's 211
language groups.
Language groups here in Kansas
that.
City between that kind of area that you
and
just
certain what we would call certain countries
Yeah.
have some different language groups that are here, but they identify them as the language groups. That's
Amazing.
what they say. Again, I can't say that I've met all of them, but being in those
Right,
areas,
exactly.
it's amazing
Yeah.
how many and how many churches are partnering with them or letting them use their facilities for some of these different nationalities. It's some great things
It's
going
like
on
the
across
mission
Kansas City.
field has just come here,
Yeah,
right?
it
to
is.
us,
It
yeah.
has come to Kansas City.
Yeah, it's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, a lot of them were. At one time, most people realized in 2009,
Okay.
Kansas City was named for the houses in that area the most abandoned city in America. Forbes magazine. Go back and look. Made
Okay,
that
hold on. Slow down just for a second. Okay, so 2009, we were
the
known
most
as the what?
most abandoned homes. This was more was Kansas City, Detroit, Chicago at that time.
Really?
And so a lot of those began to be some of those refugees, different things began to be placed in those homes.
Because they
Apartment
were
complex.
abandoned homes? Is
Yeah,
that
the
what you're
government
saying?
would.
Okay.
My understanding was,
Yeah.
I've heard people tell me,
Okay.
again, there's stories heard, that they came here, they were placed here under 2 years, that if they became productive, they were going to be allowed to stay. Whether anybody came back, checked on them, how it worked, I have no idea. But that's where you see, and it's amazing.
That's crazy. That's like the, back in the day, the 40 acres and a mule.
Yeah.
If you can make this land productive, then you get to keep it. It's the same with the
And it's
house.
amazing
That's
how they all
crazy.
group together, though,
Yeah.
now. I mean, you go around and those language groups
Okay.
will be grouped. They'll take over a whole neighborhood. I
Right,
mean,
right.
schools and all like that. With
So you have almost
ones
like
that-
a little community right there
Yeah,
and whatever.
and every time a house will become open,
Yeah.
we found that a lot of those people will buy that house, and then another family will move in there. They just kind of all work together. It's just, as I say, just what I've seen in the last 10 years, it's amazing that.
That's absolutely phenomenal. So you came to kind of the end of your time as a pastor at the church. I'm sure that must have been a really challenging situation. Like that you've invested most of your life into these people that you love. I'm sure. Tell me about that transition and how that went.
It was 2009.
Okay.
We went through a lot of situations in our family. We actually ended up with 10 surgeries in about 6 months.
Okay. Yeah, that's a lot.
Our son had 4 surgeries, problems in his throat.
Okay.
Our daughter had staph infection.
Okay.
She was on the mission field in Dominican Republic. She was, and they had to fly her back. They had to do emergency surgery. She'd had scoliosis, the rods in her back, and and so they told us she probably was not going to be able to live. Sherry had some cancerous kind of things going on, surgeries back then, and it was just a crazy time in our life, and just all we were doing on healthcare and all. And I was out visiting my daughter in Philadelphia. They were youth pastors there at that time.
Okay. And
she was back in the hospital with still a staph infection, and I was reading just emails just on my phone, just sitting there in the hospital room with her. And one came across about how we lose almost 1,500 young ministers every year, or every month, because it's almost 80,000 a year.
Okay. You got to slow down because that's another really great stat. So you're reading your email and say that one more time.
1,500.
1,500
young across all denominations.
Okay.
Pastors that we lose who quit the ministry every month.
They quit the ministry every month.
That's what they say.
1,500. Did they say why they quit the ministry?
Often just depression.
Okay. Yeah.
Sometimes lack of good pay.
Of course.
Right, I mean, they get placed in situations.
Yep, exactly.
And difficulty in congregation. I mean, there's numerous reasons.
Yeah.
But I had committed that I was never going to pastor the church I was in past age 65. I decided
You were just that's your cutoff.
I wanted to give the rest of my life then to younger ministers, invest in them.
Okay.
And it was like whenever I was reading that,
it's
almost like there was a voice inside of me that said, you can make a difference in young ministers' lives right now.
Yeah.
Why don't you give me the best years of your life instead of the leftovers? And so I told my wife, Sherry, what I felt like the Lord saying. She says, okay, I'll support it.
Okay.
How are we going to pay for that?
Right. The practical one.
Yeah,
right?
the wise. We all have wise.
It's great vision, but how are you going to make it happen?
Yeah. God gives us our wise that we have to actually plan stuff out. Don't tell them what we'd be trying if it wasn't for them.
Absolutely.
And so we came up with a plan.
Okay.
In 2 years, this is what we were going to do, and when we were to step back, we could have everything paid off.
Right.
And I'm sitting in a board meeting. You know how those go. And
for sure.
I always would lay out a vision for the next year, everything we're going to do.
Right.
In December, and I remember one of the board members asked, says, "Phil, you're just kind of quiet.
You're not giving us what
are
you
doing?
Going?
Where are we going for the year?" And I said, "This was really quiet. I was thinking through things, and I said, you know what, guys." The truth is, I don't think I'll be here a year from now. Matter of fact, I don't think I'll be here 6 months from now.
Whoa, I bet that was big bomb.
I said, let's just make this my official resignation and get it over with.
What?
And it was like a bomb went off.
Oh, my goodness.
And then I had to go home and tell my wife what I did, and another bomb went off.
Oh, man. Wow.
So,
okay.
and they said pray about it. I did for a couple of weeks, and I thought, no, this is what God
really
is leading me to.
That email must have really captured your heart, just that idea of 1,500 ministers out of the ministry.
And you think what that means, Pastor David, your time in there, what that means in investment in time people put into them, investment in money into education.
Absolutely.
And really, in one sense, I hate to say it, but all that's squandered whenever you lose them.
Oh, no. It's like a brain drain, right?
Yeah.
It's like you think about, like lots of countries, they lose some of their best people to the United States, right? Because they want to come here and they lose what they call brain drain. It's the same with spiritually, right? It's like almost a spiritual drain. It's really sad for our country.
Well, and everybody's so worried about back to church planting that, we got too many churches now that are filled up. The best way to reach people is through a new church.
Okay, tell everybody that again, because I've tried to tell our congregation that multiple times, and people look at me like I'm crazy. There's a church on every corner. What are you talking about? So explain what you mean by that.
Another statistic that was figured up was looking at all the churches here in Kansas City.
Yep.
If we filled them up twice on Sunday, we'd still only reach 45 to 50% of the people in Kansas City.
Wow.
If they need a reason why, my opinion is if they put a McDonald's on every corner.
That is,
different
that's
things.
my opinion as well, too.
And let's plant churches.
Yeah.
It can't grow if it ever gets started. I mean, it's like having babies.
Exactly.
People say, what wonderful kids. Well, we all go through phases. They aren't always wonderful kids. Or they're a lot of work and different things.
Right.
But you know what? You don't have that blessing without, giving birth.
Yeah.
And I just wish more people would have that passion and desire. And I've had a chance to visit both the churches before I started attending here. I heard about both churches because we had one young couple at our church that went to Oh, now I lost it.
That's all right. We went to another
Casey.
church. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, Pastor Chris's church.
Oh, yeah. Bridgeway.
Bridgeway.
Yeah. Okay.
And I happened to run into Matt Shirley at an event, and I started coaching Matt as he was starting Park City.
Right.
And so it was so much fun getting to know them and hear what was going on here.
Yeah.
Because that wasn't necessarily the belief of this church always back in time gone by. And sometimes in what had gone through, it was more hanging on.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They're a great giving church from everything I've known about them, their history. I mean, some of these people I know because their kids played in our basketball league. We ran out of our church.
Right, because you were in the Maranatha thing. So
and we ran a basketball league, NBL, out of our church.
Okay.
And so all the kids, basically from first grade through 7th or 8th grade, played in that league, it seems like. And so there's just a lot of friends I have out there of people we saw every Saturday for
So tell me then about the coaching aspect of your daughter and your son-in-law are their church planters in Philadelphia. I know that. You've got a couple of people maybe here in Kansas City and others that you communicate with. How do you go about, and maybe let me ask you this question. What's one main bit of advice that you give to new young pastors that step into ministry? I'm putting you on the spot, so I'm going to have you think about that for a second. Yeah, what do you think?
I think the biggest thing is to encourage them in the friendships and relationships they're going to make.
Oh, that's good.
Even in those tough times.
That's really good.
And that they have a chance to build something that nobody else will build.
Right.
And some people hesitate about going to a church plant because it's smaller, all things. But you will form friendships in the early days of church you can never get going to a larger church or even coming into a church like this established now. You make a small group. You just can't.
Yep.
You wish you could, but those friendships, and I tell the guys, those relationships will last forever. And those people may only be with you a short time, or they may go somewhere else.
Right.
But I said they will be friends forever because of what you're all going to go through.
That's really good.
In those early days and all building there. And I just, I encourage them to, spend time with the Lord. Make sure they're still spending time not only with Him but with their family.
Right.
Don't, because the ministry can sap all your time. I mean, you could be 24/7.
What are you talking about? I have no idea what
always thought I want my car. I want to get a bumper sticker that just says "Ministry happens."
Yeah, ministry
happens. It just happens. Okay,
exactly.
All over every day.
That's right. Wow. But I think what you do, like working and coaching with these young people, talking about the fact that church plants are really the best way to reach people who don't know Jesus.
Yeah.
And I wish more people understood that stat, that really the bulk of the evangelization that takes place in the United States right now is happening through church plants.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because the larger of a church that you get, the more ingrained that you get with the relationships that you have, and your relationship kind of gets, with the Lord is good, it goes deep and gets mature, but it gets a little stagnant when it comes to evangelism.
And I want to say one thing here, Pastor David, because some people then can start thinking, well, it ought to be all church planting.
Oh, right. Okay.
But you know what?
Good point.
We need all sizes of churches. There's a mega church out there.
Yep.
There's a mid-size.
Yep.
Our church often ran around 400 or so.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that size. That's the reason I like to plant and give people away, because sometimes we grow out past that and get into the 550 range. It was like I'd rather give people away.
Yeah.
And kind of keep it in there, and and we were on a piece of ground that was 5 acres. The old story is you can pastor about 100 people per acre.
Interesting. I never heard that stat before.
And you go look at churches, and that's about what you can get. Anything, no matter how many services you try to have or what you do, that's about the impact. Just because you have to do parking and everything in this day and time. Of course, used to you had 3 people for every 1 parking spot. Now it seems like every 1 person brings 3 cars to church. So, you got to have a ton of parking.
That's really true. Yeah. Well, I love your heart for pastors, ministries, church planting, all that. But you've kind of shifted into a new ministry as well. And why don't you tell us a little bit about that? What you're doing now?
There's become
besides the coaching,
yeah. And I started out coaching this team. There were some of us who were praying together, and we're like, what can we kind of do together? And we decided to go and partner with a school.
Okay.
And so we did that actually here in Shawnee with the Shawnee Mission School.
Okay, got it.
And kind of out of that and reaching out to those, and there were some others going on in Olathe. It's not a ministry, it's a nonprofit called Caring for Kids.
Okay.
And it's been involved in 8 different school districts.
Okay.
Olathe, Shawnee Mission, KCK, KC Mo, Raytown, Hickman Mills, Center, Grandview.
Wow. Okay. You hit
and then
all
then it's going to we're just starting in the DeSoto schools this next year, kind of the west part of Shawnee, and in Piper.
Okay. Now, when did Caring for Kids start, and what's kind of the vision of Caring for Kids?
2013, and it was
2013.
it was to bring churches, businesses, and civic organizations together around a school. We start out with the needs of the school. Often schools are under-resourced and all.
Right.
But we've now revamped that and looked at it and said, no, we don't want to just meet the needs.
Right.
What are the principals' goals? So we want to hear them say, what do they want to do? And it may be about increasing attendance or increasing grades.
Right.
It's how do we partner with them and get the community involved
So
to
we're
make
trying
a difference.
You're trying to champion what that principal, that lead, wants to do.
They know better what's the need of school. The teachers, they're the ones going to be. You were in missions.
Yeah, right, yes.
And you know that
number of years,
mission trips, all that Cross Points will do here.
Yep.
You're going to go in there for a while and
Yep,
help.
exactly.
But you're going to be gone.
Yep, exactly.
And the missionary or those on the ground are still going to be doing.
No, yeah, exactly.
That's who you want to build up and you want to strengthen.
Yeah, any missionary worth their salt is always going to say, how can we help come alongside you? Not what can we impose on you?
Yeah.
And that's the same principle that you're doing. That's crazy. So 8 different districts, and you're championing the principles of those and then coming alongside and helping. And how are you resourcing? What are some of the things? Give me some stories. What have you done?
Boy,
I'm sure you got a ton.
well, I can give you statistics.
Yeah.
There's over 1,700 projects that have been done. Almost $1 million have been invested
Really?
back in the schools. There's about 1,200 people who have a mentor
Okay.
at different times or have a mentor going in mentoring with students.
Yeah, we have some of those here at Cross Point. Some people that go in and they read with the students, and
And just for whatever is needed. I mean, it really is just hearing what's the need. There's been construction projects. Man, one of the high schools over in Ruskin High School.
Okay.
And that's just kind of a funny story. We heard it later. But Pastor Lester, one of the pastors over there, wanted to reach out and do some leadership stuff with some of the students.
Okay.
She asked the principal, and the principal saying, what I'd really love to do is reach some of these kids who are always problem kids, but I think they got potential.
Okay.
And so they invited
The Clint Spriggs of the day, right?
So they invited 12 students
Okay.
into this leadership group.
Okay.
But they didn't know what they were invited for. They just asked to come to the office or conference room.
Oh, so they weren't sure if they were
before the pastor. Well, that's the funny part.
Okay.
Hearing from the kids later, we didn't know this at the time.
Right.
But these 12 kids get in there and they're looking at each other, in a large high school.
Oh, sure.
They kind of know of each other's reputations.
Yes.
But they don't really know, and they're going, well, the one thing we have in common is we always cause problems. They finally had enough of us. They're going to kick us out. And that was their belief. All 12 of them were convinced.
Sure.
Then Pastor Lester, the principal, walk in. They start talking to them about what they want to do, leadership thing. They start meeting before school.
I bet these guys were I bet these kids were blown away. Like no one had ever kind of seen potential in them.
And that's what they said.
Yeah.
Pastor Lester was like, your principal sees potential in you.
Yeah.
And suddenly these kids, they responded to it. These 12 now have become leaders. They show up before school early to have this leadership group meeting. Never miss.
Wow.
And it started in last March, and it's incredible, those opportunities. And that's what it is. It's just, kids have gone through so much hurt and trauma.
I know, it's true.
And they just need somebody to believe in them.
Yeah.
Somebody to listen to their stories. Sometimes we just need lunch buddies just to go in and sit and listen to a kid talk or brag on a kid or different things like that. Wow. I mean, we all need somebody to believe in us. We all want that.
Absolutely, yeah.
We want somebody to say something nice about us and just believe in our futures. And so that's what we're doing is trying to restore hope in these kids' lives. Now, we know that hope has a name, and his name is Jesus Christ.
Absolutely, right.
But we're not there to preach.
Right,
We're there to love and to share,
and
to share with them, and just the love of Christ. You don't have to use words.
Come on, let's preach that, right?
You just have to live it out. Matter of fact,
live it out.
It'd be better if more people in the church would live it out instead of talking about it so much.
Right. Yeah, so fascinating. I love that. So, about how many churches are involved with kind of the caring for kids? You have any idea how many churches are involved with that?
Right now, matter of fact, I just saw that statistic.
Okay,
It's we got a little over I think it's 187 churches in 87 schools right now. So maybe it's 185. I don't know those numbers in there. I actually could pull them up. I got my phone. So
no, that's all right. Yeah, but whatever. A little over
180.
180.
And we got about 94 businesses.
Wow. Okay.
And I think there's about 85, 90 civic organizations. That may be Chamber of Commerce, Kiwanis clubs, Lions clubs, different ones, or.
Man, I love that. When you can have the church, the business, the schools all working together for a common cause to help our kids.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. There's no limit to what can be done. Well, and there's no reason why. I mean, and that's the reason why this is spreading to all of these school districts.
Yeah.
Is because, who wouldn't want this?
Well, everybody wants it. Because even in some of the districts would be considered those who maybe don't have great needs as far as resources.
Yeah.
But, we forget that right here where we're living at in Johnson County, we sometimes in our school kids are having one of the highest suicide rates in the country of kids who seem to have everything going for them and have no hope.
I know.
And I'm just like, I've talked with the police chief in Overland Park.
Right.
He's talked about, man, somehow we've got to get involved in more schools here.
Yeah.
Because kids just need somebody to believe in them.
Yeah.
I mean, even in our, a lot of what we've done, especially in the elementaries, middle schools, but we're starting to do more in the high schools, finding really the great need there.
Yeah. Well, Phil, I just want to say thank you on behalf of just kind of our community here at Cross Points for all that you're doing and the investment that you've made in the city. It's really pretty profound. If somebody was interested in getting involved with Caring for Kids, is there a way for them to do that? Can they contact you? Is there a need for that?
There is.
Okay.
And they can go to, you said, I want to get to 411. Well, that's what our ministry is called, 411.
Okay. Oh, cool.
411 Impact.
Okay.
And it's .us.
Okay, so 411impact.us. 411impact.us. And we'll put it in the notes below, too, so if people want to have a link to that. They can get that, and then they'll find out more information on how to get involved there.
Yeah, because we started out, 411 came from the idea of both being able to help people, but out of Ephesians 4:11, the leadership gifts of being able to take care of the leaders and different things, and bringing them together.
Yeah.
And the impact stands for Inspiring Ministry Partnerships to Achieve City Transformation.
I love it.
That's what we're all working for. I love the city. We're all excited right now with the Chiefs and what's going on.
Go Chiefs! Come on, we can make this happen.
I love what Patrick Mahomes said when they're down 24-0.
Yep.
Let's do something special.
Exactly.
I think, what would it be if, as individual churches together, Christians all work together, what if we did something special in the city to make this the greatest city in the world to live in?
Well, let me tell you this. I think that something special is already happening, and it's happening through the church plants, through partnerships like these with the schools. I mean, all of this synergy is coming together. I really believe that there is something really unique and special happening here in Kansas
There is. It's unique in Kansas City, what's going on. And I hopefully pray it goes on all around the country.
Right, that it spreads.
That I heard somebody say the other day, we need to make our country good again.
Yeah.
It's not about making it great, but we need to be good again.
And there's no one good except for God.
That's right.
That's right, and He can only make us good.
Yeah, that's the only one.
All right. Well, hey, thank you all for joining us today at the Cross Points podcast. Phil, it's such a pleasure to have you here today, and just pray that you guys have a blessed day. Thanks so much for joining us, and join me next week for a great podcast.